So we're given some data for a closed economy, and we're supposed to use that data to calculate four things. The first is private savings. So we know that we can find private savings by calculating how much money people earn and subtracting how much people spend. So how much people earn, that's their income, which can be expressed as Y, because that is the GDP and the amount of income that is earned throughout the entire economy. Adding transfer payments, because that's how much money the government gives consumers. Subtracting consumer spending, which is how much money they spend on goods and services, and also subtracting the amount of money they pay in taxes. When you plug all of the numbers into this expression, you get that total private savings is equal to $1 trillion. Part B asks us to calculate public savings. And so for this part, we're going to use the savings equals investment rule, which says that the sum of public and private savings is equal to total amount of investment spending. And intuitively, this makes sense because in order to invest in capital stock or machinery, you need to have savings in the bank to do that. We can rearrange this expression. And we know that investment spending is $2 trillion, and we know from the previous part that private savings $1 trillion. So we know that public savings is also $1 trillion. Part C asks us for government purchases. So government purchases is one component of GDP, and we know that GDP is equal to the sum of consumer spending, government expenditures, and investment spending. And we can rewrite that expression or equation as such. We all know the three variables on the right side, so then we can just plug this in. And we can then calculate how much money the government spends, which turns out to also be $1 trillion. Part D asks us to find the government budget deficit or the budget surplus, which I'll just label as B. So we know that whether or not the government has a deficit or a surplus is dependent upon how much revenue they earn and how much money they spend. So how much revenue they earn is equal to tax revenue, which is how much money they get from consumers by taxing them. But we also have to subtract how much they spend, which is transfer payments through the form of welfare and other social programs they give to consumers. And we also need to spend or subtract government expenditures. We know all the variables on the right, and when we plug them in, we get that the government actually has a surplus of $1 trillion because they earn more revenue in taxes than they spend through transfer payments or other government expenditures.